Welcome to the Dodgers Prospects Podcast. We are back. Casey Porter, Tim Rogers. We are back with the Dodgers Prospects Podcast, so we're so glad that you decided to tune in and give us another chance here. So, Tim, how are you doing this afternoon? Very excited to get this podcast started again.
Yeah, definitely excited. I mean, when you reached out recently and said, let's do this, let's get this started again, it's like, let's do it, because I think we did well, and now I think we're really ready to roll, and it's kind of like part two, right? And let's get
no
rolling.
doubt. And no better time to do it, of course. The regular season is very busy. We both go to a lot of games. I know you got a lot of really good interviews from a lot of great players. So did I there in Tulsa and Oklahoma City. So very busy, and I know that you've been in Florida helping your son move. Is that correct?
Well, actually, the younger one, I went out to Disney World. He works at Disney World.
Okay.
And so I was watching him do his. He's in entertainment, so it's like he's got talent that none of us have, and the rest of us have in our family. So it's fun to go out there. Now I'm moving the other one to Texas next week.
What part of Texas?
Northern Austin, not in the city, but a little bit outside of it.
Not Houston, right?
No. It's Liberty Hill or something like that. It's still it's outside of Austin.
Yeah, that's a great area, and that's an area that's growing. Of course, the Texas Rangers AAA club is right there at Round Rock, so you might get to see the Oklahoma City Dodgers, or he might, if you're there watching or visiting him, whatever, might get to go see the AAA Dodgers quite a bit there in Round Rock, Texas. So, hey, we have a busy show today. Like we said, the regular season, very busy. So off season, the hot stove has already hit. We've already talked a lot of Rule 5 stuff. We've talked about all the guys who have been protected, not protected, the guys that we may lose. That Rule 5 draft comes up on December 7th next month. And so today what we're going to do is we're going to talk about, do the Dodgers need more pitching? Of course, you have Urias and you have Gonsolin, you have Dustin May coming back. Nobody knows exactly what he's going to be able to give you this next year coming off the Tommy John. Then also you have Kershaw, who's a little bit older, so you kind of got a game plan into his situation that he's going to be out at least certain parts of next year. You never know, but you would have to at least game plan to that. So that leaves you with 4 starters and then a 5th spot that we're going to talk about today between the 4 big ones. Ryan Pepiot, Michael Grove made their debuts last year. And then obviously Bobby Miller and his 100-plus fastball. And then Gavin Stone, who is the minor league pitcher of the year in the Dodgers organization. So that's our topic for today. We're going to cover those 4 in extent. So very excited about that. So, hey, let's go ahead and start with the 2 guys that the Dodgers fans have already seen. Ryan Pepiot, Michael Grove. What was your impression of them?
Yeah, they had their moments, both good and bad. One of the concerns that I had, it was kind of the Mitchell White syndrome of, well, a guy goes and pitches one start, gets back on the plane the next day, back to Oklahoma City, and then flies out again, possibly in 10 days later or something like that. Sometimes they would just leave him on the taxi squad, but I don't think neither of them were able to really get into a pattern. I saw a lot of good stuff. I mean, you could see, the swing and miss with Pepiot.
42 strikeouts, in 38.1 innings.
Yeah, and he only gave up, I think it was 26 hits.
Yeah, 3.47 ERA. So the ERA actually was pretty good. It was just the walks and not as many strikes as I think Dodgers fans would have liked to have seen. Right, and
you can see it. I mean, he misses almost. A lot of his misses are in the right-handed batter's box. That changeup goes and fades too much, and the fastball runs a lot to that side. And those seem to be very adjustable. And so, overall, I was happy with him, and I would have gone with him a lot more during the season. I think it would have helped to save some arms. I think we talked this briefly on Twitter. I think we're both in favor of the 6-man rotation.
Yeah.
And then with Grove, it was so great to see. You wrote an amazing article about him last year, just about how a good dude he is. And about his journey. And I saw that journey at Rancho at the beginning of 2019, where he's coming back from Tommy John surgery, and they're limiting him to 2 innings maybe, and he's struggling even with those. And he struggled up really until what? Would you say like August 2021? And then all of a sudden he found it. I think
it was the Tommy John surgery. I think most people don't realize that West Virginia, he did not pitch the back half of his sophomore year or his entire junior year, and then got drafted in 2018. So, and then 2020 got canceled. So really, when you look at 2021, the time that you're talking about, and then especially 2019, he had not pitched since basically the first half of his sophomore year, which was almost 2 years. So no doubt he had some rust.
Yeah, and some people expect Tommy John guys to come back real fast. I know during the season there was like, oh, Dustin May's coming back.
Yeah.
Not everyone comes back like Justin Verlander did. I mean, it's
or
amazing.
Walker Buehler, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes it takes a while. What's his name? The Red Sox left-hander, Chris.
Sale?
Oh, Sale. Yeah. Why is that so falling apart? It took. Even when he came back, he did not have the same command. And you saw that with Dustin. And so the ball's just not going where they think it's going to go. And with Grove, that happened. And it happened for a longer time because of what you just talked about. I mean, he just didn't. Can you imagine you're a pitcher and it's 2017?
Yeah.
And you really don't start even pitching again till 2019. And then the Dodgers, of course, slow rolled him.
And then 2020 canceled the entire minor league season.
Yeah. Yeah. So I his control was better. He did get hit more. I think it was 32 hits in 29 innings.
Home run ball hurt him, yeah.
Yeah. But some of those things those are learning things where it is big league hitters.
Yeah.
You miss, they're gonna make you pay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which makes, in my opinion, what Pepiot did even more impressive. And I can tell you, I've talked to both of those guys. So have you. They are just wonderful young men. And, I was talking to Gus Varlin. He was a Dodgers top 30 prospect when he came over from the A's. And Gus started this year as a starter with Tulsa. And congratulations to his brother, Louie, by the way. I'm sure you know this, but a lot of Dodgers fans may not. But Gus and Louie are brothers. They got to face each other twice this year. Louie is in the Minnesota organization and played while he was still with Wichita, who is a Double-A affiliate of Minnesota. The Wichita played, of course, Wichita and Tulsa is a big rivalry now. They call it the Propeller Series. But Louie and Gus got to face off against each other. Gus got the better half of the first one. I got to talk to both of them at the same time. Really cool experience. But Louie actually made his major league debut this year. So Gus Varlin, I wanted to get that in there. He definitely has the bloodlines, and Gus transitioned to the bullpen and was throwing 98 and some say even 99 towards the end of this year. So made some arm adjustments, went to the bullpen. Really high on Gus Varlin. We'll get to him in a different show, but I only say that to say I was talking to him one day before one of the chances we had a chance to talk, and he mentioned, he had the Tommy John too, and he's like, it's not that you can't throw the ball. It's not that you don't have all the stuff. It's just it doesn't feel right. Nothing feels like it used to. And so, pitchers are so feel heavy, especially now with all the change ups and all that. When it just doesn't feel right, it's totally different. So, we're talking about that with Michael Grove with that Tommy John surgery. Whenever, and especially when you don't have the experience. I mean, he barely even had college experience, because we're talking a freshman year, true freshman year, and then half of a sophomore year, then that's it. Then 2020 gets canceled. So when you think about that, he came from that. And then 2021, I'm going to point blank put it, it was a rough adjustment period. I mean, if you look at his ERA numbers, he gave up a lot of home runs. It was a tough year, which is why at the end of last year, 2021, whenever he's put on the 40-man, everybody except for people who follows it like you and I were like, what? Where did this guy come from? What in the world happened here? Well, if you followed the talent, you would know exactly how talented Michael Grove is, always has been, but his situation has been that he's been recovering from the Tommy John, doesn't have a whole lot of innings under his belt. And so as we're seeing, as he builds, Tim, I think you can see the talent, the big curveball, the fastballs in the 94, 95, 96 range, and then he's added also the slider.
Yeah, and and it's you're bringing up the surprise of some people, and like I said, we weren't, but
not at all. Yeah,
just because the MLB top prospects 30 says Michael Grove's at a certain level, or someone else, they don't know what the Dodgers really think.
Well, look at the organizational all-stars. How many of them aren't top 30 prospects? Right. Ryan Noda and Drew Avens and those guys. I mean, are the best players in the organization. Say it again.
Yeah. Jason Martin.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah, absolutely. So continue on with your thought there, Tim.
Yeah, they just don't. The Dodgers have their own ways of doing things. I mean, and we're going to talk about him, and I've shared this story a little bit, but Gavin Stone was not a really high-rated guy. But I saw his debut at Rancho. Well, actually, it wasn't at Rancho. It was in San Bernardino against the Angels affiliate. And he struck out, a lot of guys. And then it was opening day at Rancho. This was still when everyone was locked out with, the fans couldn't, they were spreading the fans out, and even the media couldn't go in. And I got locked out waiting to get in with Charlie Huff. And so I'm talking with Charlie Huff, who's an instructor with the Dodgers and played for the Dodgers for years, the Rangers, the Marlins, and I was just throwing out names, and I said Gavin Stone, and he just looked at me, kind of a glimmer in his eye, and just goes, "Yeah, Gavin Stone." And this he wasn't even in the top 30 at the time, and now you've seen a pitcher like Gavin Stone that the Dodgers really believe in.
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden, he's getting all the notoriety, and I don't know what we're talking about, but I think he debuts in 2023 at some point.
I don't think there's any doubt about it. I think those four are going to, between Pepiot, Grove, Bobby Miller, we'll get to him too, and then also Gavin Stone, they're going to all fill that fifth role. And then when you look at Dustin May, he's not going to be able to give you a complete set of innings for an entire season. Clayton Kershaw, his history would tell you that you're going to need to fill in innings for him as well. Julio Urias, of course, you don't want to wear him down. And then, obviously, Tony Gonsolin, he's been injured quite a bit. So, if you don't go out and get pitching, which, I think I blew up Twitter the other day whenever I said, I don't think, and what I meant by that was, I don't think the Dodgers have to go out and aggressively just go break the bank to go get a pitcher. Does that make sense? I think if they go get one that makes sense within their price structure, they're wanting to reset that luxury tax, then go right ahead. Because if you look at the Tyler Andersons and Andrew Heaney's, in a lot of ways, those guys that the Dodgers have done a great job scouting and bringing in that have fit the price structure have been more valuable to them than maybe even a Max Scherzer. Would you agree with that?
In a lot of ways. I mean, when you look at the value.
Yeah.
I mean, and let's be honest, in the playoffs, Tyler Anderson was pretty darn good.
Pretty darn good, yeah.
So
was Andrew Heaney.
No, he was, yeah. I mean, he pitched, 4 innings of relief, because Gonsolin, and I hated the Dodgers kept throwing out guys into the lineup and on the mound that weren't 100% or not even close. Some of them shouldn't even been on the roster, but it's like, eh. But, just as a guy like Anderson and Heaney, my target that I would be signing is Sean Manaea.
Yeah.
The guy from the Padres last year and the A's before that. I just think he's a guy that the Dodgers pitching witch doctors would probably turn him back into someone really good. There's a lot.
Mark Pryor, Rob Hill, go to work with the driveline guys. Go to work with a guy like
McGinnis.
That. Yeah. So Gavin Stone, the minor league pitcher of the year last year, he was an organizational all-star. He went to the University of Central Arkansas. He's from the Jonesboro area, which is the Arkansas State area. And in his last game in 2020, before that season got shut down for the University of Central Arkansas, threw a no-hitter. So, I mean, if you talk to like Nick Harlan, his pitching coach in college, and all of the guys who have coached him in the past, and Buster Campbell, who was his high school coach back there at his high school at Riverside, if you talk to those guys, they are not surprised at all by what Gavin Stone is doing. And Gavin Stone, the thing that he's done, of course, he reached 98 miles an hour with his fastball. He doesn't sit 98, obviously. He's a 94 to 96 kind of guy, but he has hit 98 with it. But what he did towards the end of 2021, he added that changeup, and I'm not sure that changeup isn't his best pitch right now. That changeup that Gavin Stone throws is unbelievable.
Man, that would be a heck of an addition to the arsenal. If it really is evolving into that type of thing. And I think with Gavin Stone, what I just kind of looking at it, it seems that he's able to be more efficient than the other pitchers we've been talking about. And I think that is an extra level that it shows a little something extra. I think all those other guys can become more efficient. It's just a matter of, Yeah, and you know, I think we see how these things are. It's like,
Yeah, Gavin Stone, 44 walks and 121.2 innings to go to your point there. Yeah.
yeah, and even the number of pitches, I think I mean, he was going longer into games than some of the other guys. Even though Pepiot did throw some in the minors, was definitely throwing better. But you know that it seems that we see this. Where it's like, hey, big guy, go out there and throw as hard as you can for as long as you can, and we'll pull you after 5.
Yeah.
I personally, I hate that.
Oh, it's terrible. And I tweeted about it, you know, even during the time whenever, you know, and whenever they pulled Tyler Anderson. And I think in the 4th inning, I tweeted, this is what's going to happen. And I'm not, you know, and don't get me wrong, the Dodgers front office is right way more than, it's the best one going in Major League Baseball. I don't mean that to be a criticism. We're just simply talking from the analytics perspective. It works for the regular season, doesn't always work in the postseason.
Yeah. Well, even during the regular season, if you were, cause one of the things that our I guess kind of rivals now are the Padres. They did a 6-man rotation for at least half the season.
Yeah, you brought that up on Twitter. I like that idea.
Yeah, and they let their pitchers go a little bit longer, save their bullpen a bit, and also, you know, the starters had that extra day, and it let them stretch out.
Yeah,
their starters were fresher than ours.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, and I think with those 4 guys, you have the ability to go to a 6-man because when you talk about Pepiot, Grove, Miller, and Gavin Stone, they all need major league experience this next year.
I agree. I mean, I think I'm very excited to see Miller. I've only seen him once live, and that was when the Dodgers were playing the Angels. No, wait, I did see him in spring training once too. But
did you see him strike out Shohei?
I did.
Oh, very cool experience.
Right there.
Yes.
Yeah. In fact, I was videoing his first pitch for Dodgers Nation, and so they put that out there, and he got a ton of views. But yeah, that was exciting. I mean, the stadium was fired up about that. I mean, future Dodger Shohei Ohtani after next year. I don't want to trade for him this year. It would be insane to give up, you know, our top 20 prospects or whatever to get him when we can sign him next year.
Yeah.
Goodness gracious.
Right. Dodgers front office knows all that stuff. I promise you.
They do, and that's the other thing. We know that. You know, last year they had a chance to sign Max Scherzer, and they offered him I think the rumor has it, you know, it is from Doug McCain with the Dodger Nation. He said it was like 276 or something like that, and the Mets gave him what, 130.
Yeah.
And he wasn't, and he didn't show up in the playoffs. And it's not like he's not a great pitcher. It's just age.
Yeah, no doubt.
You know?
I mean, modern day metrics don't put a whole lot of value on experience anymore. As a matter of fact, it almost devalues it, because whenever you combine the age versus the experience, the age almost wins out in terms of not valuing that situation.
Right. And with the Dodgers, they have to also, you know, you hear the rumors. Let's might as well throw them out there. Verlander and DeGrom. They're 2 excellent pitchers. But, you know, DeGrom is fragile. He's always injured. He's always out. And Verlander is 39.
Oh, is he that young?
Yeah. 39, 40. Okay. Yeah, 40. It's like, it seems like he's been here forever, huh? But it's like, how much do you invest in a guy like that? And I just think if they are trying to reset their luxury tax issues and stuff like that, they got to be careful with that. I'd rather, if they're going to go get someone, I'd rather try to figure it out in a trade, or do the Sean Manaea, Tyler Anderson type deal. Yeah, because we got to see these guys, and they've got to get real time. It's like any other guy. You can't just go and say, "Hey, Miguel Vargas, we want you to be on the playoff roster, but we're going to hardly play you in September."
Yeah, which you could see that coming. Yeah, and the problem with that is, you know, the Dodgers organization is always in win now mode. You know, Ryan Pepiot is the perfect case scenario. He had a 3.49 ERA, and I don't think people understand. You mentioned it. When you're flying that plane back and forth from Oklahoma City to L.A. or wherever, Pittsburgh, I think, is where he made his major league debut.
Yeah.
And then you're having to do spot starts. You feel like you can't make a single mistake. in that one spot start, because you don't know if you're going to get another one ever, so you don't get comfortable. And Ryan Pepiot definitely is a pitcher that has to feel comfortable. If you look at when he first came to AAA Oklahoma City in 2021, his numbers weren't good. He wasn't comfortable. He is facing major league type pitchers that might have, a couple thousand major league at bats that happen, like a Kevin Pillar type of guy, like Oklahoma City. You're facing guys like that. And if you throw it 2 inches off the plate, they don't swing, and that's an adjustment period from AA. It took him a while to adjust to AAA. And then last year, he was just absolutely completely lights out in AAA Oklahoma City. Maybe the best AAA pitcher in the entire league. So he got adjusted is what I'm trying to tell you, and it was what I'm trying to say. And so whenever you spot start a guy like Ryan Pepiot, he wasn't comfortable. As a matter of fact, he was in survival mode. He was just simply trying to survive. So when you talk about those pushes on the changeup or the pulls on the slider, that's not coming from any kind of talent or something you should be concerned about. That's coming from a guy that's not comfortable. That's coming from a guy that has nerves, that, and like we talked about even with injury, but nerves can do it to you too. When you're not comfortable, your body doesn't feel right. Does that make sense? When you're not totally relaxed?
No.
And so that's where that's coming from. I think if you gave Ryan Pepiot a certain amount of starts and you said, hey, we're going to make you comfortable at this level. You're going to, no matter what happens, you're going to get this amount of starts. So go out and do it. I think you get comfortable just like you did last year in AAA. You'd see an entirely different pitcher, and you would see the talent there. Not that you didn't see it last year. Like you said, you saw the swing and the miss. But I think what you also saw was the human side of him. You saw the nerves and that he wasn't comfortable.
Yeah. Yeah, and if you recall, there was the one game, I don't even remember who they were playing, but it was Pepiot got the start, and Doc came out and talked to him. And people thought he was going to get pulled. And Doc said, no, you got this. And Pepiot got it. He got things done. And I think that showing confidence by not only with words, but going, we're going to give you.
That's it.
This is your spot.
That's it.
You are the fifth starter, and and we're going to give you some runway. I mean, it's kind of like with Gavin Lux this last year. The guy had a real nice season until he got hurt, because they said, you're there. You're our guy out
Something
there.
They had never done for him before.
I know. And you just have to give. I'm a believer that you have to give a player 4 months.
Yeah, he's got to get comfortable.
Yeah. And it gives, and I don't care who it is. I mean, I was kind of on a leash with Coach Bellinger and Muncy last year. If you can't work it out in 4 months, I don't think you're working it out. Now, Muncy he started like about 4.5 months into it, started playing better when he did that little foot change. These are young guys.
Yeah. Are used to being the dudes. So, I mean, they're used to getting, whatever innings they need, they're not used like Gavin Lux. I'm not sure he'd ever sat on the bench in his life, So, I mean, whenever you're looking at, hey, if I don't get a hit here, I might not play for 2 more games. That's a scenario and an emotion and a feeling over his body he has never had to deal with before. So,
yeah, and I look at the way that some of these other teams, I mean, I hate to mention it, but the Astros, they replaced their shortstop.
But see, Jeremy Pena got to play every day at the same position.
Exactly.
So he was able to get comfortable. The Dodgers never seemed to be in a position like you mentioned with Gavin Lux. Finally, he got to play second. But, I'll give you an example. A guy that actually got to do that is Will Smith. And, no matter what, he got to catch. And there's been some ups and downs. The first postseason that Will Smith played wasn't great. Austin Barnes had to come in, caught the last pitch for the 2020 World Series. We all remember that. So there's been some ups and downs, but I think it's been a smoother transition for him, per se, because he's got to be the everyday catcher. Does that make sense?
And they did that with Seager. They did it with
correct.
With
and Seager came up in a tougher spot than most because he came up during, after the 2015 season, he came up during the playoffs. So
yeah. But I'm just, so with whoever they're going to go with is their fourth or fifth or sixth or whatever starter of these guys, got to just let them go.
Yep.
If you want to keep them in the minor, that's fine. But use someone else use someone else to quote abuse, not your top 10 prospects.
Yeah.
These guys are
You're talking about being on the flight plan, going back and forth and never knowing where you're going to be the next day. The Mitchell White plan is what you called it earlier. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, oh man. And it's got to be
a lot
rough
tougher
on
than
those
people
guys.
think. You forget, you see these professionals and they're so good at what they do. You forget they're humans, man. I mean, it's a tough deal.
I just flew out to Florida for a few days and it just kicked the heck out of me. Just that flight, because I had to stop in the middle and all that. And that's exhausting. And I know they have probably better flights. They're probably getting first class and all that. But, still, it's exhausting to go through the time changes.
Yep.
I mean, that's the worst. But, I just want to see these guys get a real chance.
So I think we're on the same page there with Ryan Pepiot. We've talked a little bit about Gavin Stone. We'll get back to him. Hey, let's dive into Bobby Miller. And I got a chance to see him quite a bit last year in Tulsa and then in Oklahoma City. And I think what people need to realize about him is ERA was in the mid-4s somewhere, and he did give up some home runs, and he had a couple of games where quite frankly he struggled from a statistical perspective. Like there were 2 or 3 games to where, if you're not paying attention, you might say, well, what's wrong with Bobby Miller? He struggled. But then what you didn't look at is he actually fought through some adversity and made it through, like, say, 7 innings. So it actually, from a minor league perspective, was a very successful situation, because one of the situations in minor leagues is these guys have always been dudes. I mean, they haven't dealt with a whole lot of failure in their life. So one of the things you have to learn about prospects in the minor leagues is, okay, well, they're going to have failure eventually because these are some pretty good guys they're playing against. How are they going to handle it when it happens? And so I can tell you this, watching, and Ryan Pepiot's in the same boat. They all are, but as far as being able to visibly see it, Bobby Miller is one of the most competitive dudes I have ever seen take the ball. And I'm telling you, when he gives up a hit, he's pissed. I mean, he is.
Oh, so he's got the Walker Buehler dog in him.
Yeah, he's got that dog in him. And he is just visibly upset. He does not like to give up a single hit. And another thing about the minor leagues is, you try to expand your game. Does that make sense? So, hey, let's use this next year and a half before I'm actually throwing meaningful innings in terms of towards a divisional race or something like that. And let's see if I can't broaden my horizons, if I can't add an extra pitch, if I can change kind of the mix and the percentages of what I'm throwing this to give hitters a different look. And while you're doing that, there's an adjustment period. And I think Bobby Miller squarely was in that last year. I think there were times where he was force-feeding his off-speed stuff. And I think if he would have just thrown his fastball and maybe his slider and a couple of curveballs and then thrown in a couple of changeups and went with more of a mix like that, he could have dominated and had better numbers. But, it's not about putting up good numbers in the Dodgers organization, in the minor leagues. It's about growing. Does that make sense? And broadening your horizons. And by the time
100%. Yeah. No, I see that at Rancho, where there was one game that I was at, the Quakes guys hit 8 different batters.
Yeah.
They're not, and they're not focused on, okay, we're finding the command. They are working on, hey, let's get the velocity going, let's get the pitch mix going, let's work on things. I know it cost them some games. I know the players are really competitive and want to win, and that's good. But at the same time, they're working on things all the time. And that's what we want to see. I feel bad for the opponents who are getting plunked that much.
Yeah.
And that there weren't any, I guess there weren't even any fights during the season, which is surprising.
Yeah.
But that's, the scout, I talked to a couple scouts about it, and they knew what was going on too. They just know they're not trying to hit anybody. They're just trying to learn.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think Bobby Miller was kind of in that adjustment period so the organization could use all the StatCast data to throw it into the mix and see, okay, let's throw this in here. Let's actually evaluate from a statistical and data perspective what actually makes Bobby Miller the most effective. We know he has the 100-plus fastball, right? We already know that's there. We know he has the big curveball, the changeup. We know the stuff. But let's see, as far as in terms of mix goes, how often should he be throwing the fastball? How many curveballs a game? How many changeups a game? To lefties, how does he throw the curve? Does he need to be throwing curveballs, or does he need to be throwing changeups to lefties? Does the slider? I think the Dodgers, and I don't know this, but just from what I saw with my own eyes and being in the game as much as I have, I think they were trying to put all that together last season for him. And sometimes it came out with mistake pitches that got hit over the fence that I don't think you're going to see in the future, just simply because they were, and what I'm trying to tell fans is the guys like Rob Hill that know so much about baseball, they know that. They're not worried about the pitch that just got hit over the fence, because they know it's a development situation that they're force feeding and trying to let a guy broaden his horizon. So Bobby Miller, the 100-plus fastball, and he was a 4-pitch guy last year: fastball, changeup, curveball, and slider. And I'll tell you what, when he dislocates his fastball on either the inner half or outer half, doesn't have to be perfect. Just throw it on the half, not perfect on the black. And then just throws his off speed in it for a strike anywhere in the zone. His stuff is overwhelming. He is going to be a top shelf Major League Baseball pitcher for a long, long time. Him, Pepiot, Gavin Stone, Michael Grove. Wow, there's quite a future there with those 4.
I agree. Now they just got to get a chance.
Yeah, no doubt.
I know fans are kind of going, they're nervous. I threw out a lineup yesterday.
Yeah.
Of what they currently have.
You like Vargas and left, huh?
I do. I think Muncy's okay at third. I mean, it's not the greatest.
Boy,
thing,
Vargas
but,
left and Muncy at third, and like I said, you know me, third. I'm not critical at all, but.
Yeah,
and then Lux at short, and Michael Bush at second. I
kind of go back and forth on that.
Yeah.
I look at it because right now they don't even have a DH,
and then we don't even have a center fielder yet. So
well, we've got Altman.
Yeah, that's true. Named, an established guy that we like. Known Bellinger was.
And exactly. But I tell you, I'm getting on the Jacob Maya bandwagon for shortstop.
People talk about Willie Adames and trading for him. I mean, you watch Jacob Maya play and then watch Willie Adames play. I mean, they look exactly the same. I mean, they literally do.
Yeah. I mean, the worry, of course, is Amaya's bat. But okay, bat him ninth. So what? See what he can do. Because I believe in him.
Well, he hit 17 home runs last year, and his on-base percentage was good, his OPS was good, and his batting average was right around 260. If you can throw Jacob Amaya in that 9-hole with the defense he's going to play, I have, we've both done big features on him. I actually did a feature cut for both Dodgers 80 and for what was Dodger Poke Report, now Dodgers Daily. And so go to either one of those sites and check that out. He is such a great defender on the run. I mean, he's and you caught me onto this. You've been in the dugout with him. He is a leader. He has fire in his belly. Something that, Dodgers fans, one day is the same as the next. There's not enough fire. Hey, Jacob Amaya, he's going to bring that fire, is he not?
I love it. Yeah. And I love that because, and remember, the shift is going away. It's not near as, there's still going to be some shifting. But if I have an infield with Gavin Lux at second and Jacob Maya at short, I'm in pretty good shape. I might be able to live with Max Muncy or Miguel Vargas at third, because also Freddie Freeman's going to be saving a lot of balls over there at first.
Yep.
All of a sudden, my defense is getting better. I mean, to be honest, Trey Turner disappointed the heck out of me on his defense. He was just average. I thought he was supposed to be better than that, but he wasn't. I still like him a lot, but
I'd like to have him back.
But if we're not going to have him, and it's a matter of spending $30 million,
there is a chance you could upgrade the defense at shortstop next year. I think that's what you're saying.
Exactly, and it could be Amaya.
Yep. We've got about 5 minutes left, Tim. I don't mean to cut you off there, but time is running out on us. So hey, we've talked a little bit about Pepiot, Bobby Miller, and we've talked about Gavin Stone a little bit. I wanted to go back to Michael Grove, because he's one that Dodgers fans got to see last year, and I wanted to mention that Michael Grove's always had that big curveball. I think Dodgers fans saw that, but what he started doing last year is he started throwing more of a harder breaking ball, a slider type pitch, and the reason why he did that was that big breaking ball, he has to start so high that it doesn't tunnel off of his fastball. Hitters can definitely tell the difference between his curveball and his fastball, because his curveball starts like 5 inches higher than his fastball, right? Whereas the reason why guys like to throw sliders nowadays is that you can start that slider at that exact same height, that they call it a tunnel, right? That exact same tunnel, but instead of having that backspin that the four-seam fastballs have and continuing to carry the top of that zone, that slider then breaks left. And then they also tunnel that changeup off that same location, and then that changeup tumbles and breaks right, which is why they like the changeup slider and fastball combo. That slider is something that was new to him last year, and that tunneling aspect of the slider. So I think you're going to see next year Michael Grove improve on that aspect, and we've seen in this Dodgers organization, Rob Hill does a great job of teaching that concept. We've seen when guys figure that out, they make really quick leaps really fast. So I'm excited to see how Michael Grove handles that next year.
So it just for everybody, the curveball is, over the top finger.
Yeah, right.
And so if it's coming out, it's going to be a little bit higher. Is that
correct?
What you're saying, basically?
Yes, it's going to start. It's going to start way up here.
Yeah,
and then the fastball is going to say start there. So a hitter's going to be able to say, well, here's the curveball here, so I know it's a curveball because it's higher, right? Whereas when you're throwing a slider, the slider and fastball both come out here. The fastball stays. The slider breaks. So that's why that slider gives a more of a deception to it. And that was something that was new to Michael Grove last year that he added to his game. I think he did a good job with it. But when you're trying to implement changes at the major league level, you giggle, right? It's tough, right?
Oh my gosh! I every month I'll just throw it out. Baseball is hard on Twitter.
Oh my goodness, yes.
Can you imagine? These guys are professionals, and they have to notice that stuff in order to recognize pitches. I mean, it's such a freaking hard game.
It's tough. And especially in an organization like the Dodgers, because they're always in win now mode, so there's no such thing as developing. Prospects have to come to LA with their feet running on the ground. They don't have a month or 2 months to struggle, or they're not in the lineup because the Dodgers can't afford to give up games, So it's a tough situation in this organization. But hey, we've got a minute 45 left, Tim. I know it's gone way too fast. It's going to be a whole lot of fun doing this at least every week. We've talked about maybe doing this, throughout the week if there's something like a Rule 5 draft that comes up that we want to talk about. But hey, final thoughts. We've got a minute and a half.
Yeah, just to continue the thing of we got to give these guys a chance, though, at some point to go, let's give Pepiot a chance or somebody and let them ride and let them fail and let them stay, but not get sent right back to OKC. Let them ride a bit.
I would agree with that, and I think, and I'm going to stick with it. Of course, you never can have too much pitching. I understand that, but I don't think the Dodgers need to go out and break that luxury tax bank to go get a starter because I think they have the four guys, Gonsolin, May, Urias, and then Kershaw, and then between the four rookies, I think you can make a pretty good staff. If you end up feeling like you still need a number one pitcher for the playoffs, I think you can go hit that at the trade deadline. So that's kind of where I'm at on that. But again, the Dodgers front office is the best in the game. They make the right decision way more than they make the wrong decision. So we'll end on that thought. So, hey, Tim, thank you so much. We're going to end it right there.
Thanks, Casey. See you soon.